Howdy folks, we're going to be looking at the Miniware TS100 Soldering Iron today. If you don't know much about these have taken our RC hobby by storm. I've been wanting to get my hands on one of these for over a year now and finally decided to pick one up. Super powerful, fully digital. They use the new integrated or direct drive tip technology where the heating element and the sensor is right built into the tip. You know, unlike the old style irons that the replaceable tips like a T18 slides over a ceramic element that's got the heater and the sensor in it. These are built right into the tip, so it makes response time a lot quicker. The thermal efficiency is a lot better. And you know, apparently once you've used one of these, you'll never go back to this old style tip technology. And the great thing is the price. You know, some people balk that they're 50 bucks, but you got to realize this is using the same technology as the Hakko FX951 soldering station. You know, that's a $250 soldering station. You know, you can get clones now for around the same price. But the reason you want to get one of these, or why they're so popular, is because they are portable. You can power them from a LiPo battery. You can power them from, you know, their input power range is anywhere between 12 and 24 volts DC. You can plug it into your cigarette lighter in your car. So super portable, and unlike, you know, battery powered you know, soldering irons from the past, they're just garbage, right? This competes with pro style soldering guns and can hold its own. Up until then, now I've been using a butane soldering iron. This is just antiquated garbage compared to this new stuff. So let's take a look what's in the box. And I'll show you what else I got for this thing. But it actually comes with, it looks like a manual. I didn't think it would. I downloaded the manual online. I'll put a link down below in the description for the manual and all the good stuff where you can order these from. But yeah, this is exactly like the manual you can get online. So that's neat to see. So yeah, here it is. It's very tiny. It's got a nice OLED display. Very easy to work with, and like I said, you can power it from any 12 to 24 volt DC power source. And it uses a 5525 barrel connector, so it's a 5.5 millimeter OD with a 2.5 millimeter ID. And then it's also got a USB port, mini USB port for flashing new firmware, and this is open source as well, and there's a fellow by the name of Ben Brown, and he's got this, you can download it off of GitHub. It's Ralim firmware for this, with features that the average RC hobbyist is really going to like. You don't have to do that out of the box. They work great, but once you get that new firmware in it, makes them even more versatile than they already are. But this is 65 watts. And you know, you can do easily 12, should be able to do 12 gauge with this, but we're going to try to do a 10 gauge today to see if it can do it. It comes with a conical tip as standard for, you know, circuit board work. Perfectly fine for that. Most people who are doing circuit board work probably would like a bevel tip better, but that's why I also ordered one of the chisel tips or wedge tips. This is the DS24, so I would highly recommend picking one of these up as well. And then the other thing I got for it was this is just an XT60 connector with the barrel plug on the end. And you could make your own up. There's nothing, you know, the reason I like this, it's nice, high flex silicone wire, nice to work with. But this way you can plug it right into your LiPo pack and then plug it obviously into the iron. You know, you could power this, like I said, you could use a 12 volt, or this is my 15 volt, one of my 15 volt RC power supplies for one of my battery chargers. You know, you could power it through that, you know, a benchtop power supply. You could power it that way. Lots of options. You can go right up to 6S, but not fully charged. Like I said, up to 24 volts at storage state. 3.85 volts per cell. You're perfectly safe using a 6S. Should be around what, 23.1, 23.2. You know, that's a 6S pack in storage state. So that's what we're going to be powering it with here today, just to give you an idea. The difference in powering, like voltages, dictates how much wattage this is going to put out. So if you want it to put out the maximum amount of watts, you have to give it the full 24 volts. Just as an example, this is right out of the manual. At 12 volts, this thing will put out 17 watts. It'll be drawing about 1.4 amps, and they say it takes about 40 seconds to heat the tip up to 300 degrees Celsius. Whereas at 24 volts, you can get the full 65 watts, draws 2.7 amps, and it will heat the tip up within 11 seconds. Big difference. So, you know, if you need higher power to do bigger connectors, yeah, you'll probably want to run it off at 24 volts if possible. It comes with a little Allen key. Oh yeah, that's screwed down. Okay, clicks in there. Just take the little protector off. And let's plug it in to our LiPo. So it shows what firmware version. So when you first plug it in, now it's showing to press this is the A button closest to the tip. And it's showing it's ramping up the temperature. And that's how quick she's ramping up. Tip's smoking already, and there it's stabilizing. When you get these little bars going straight across, it means it's holding the temperature. With the little chevrons or arrows going up, it was increasing. When the chevrons go down, it decreases. So here, let's just put the tip in a damp sponge, and we'll see how that temperature drops. Okay, there it's dropping, but you can see how fast it's recovering. Just amazing. And if you wanted to dial the temperature up or down, you just hold the B button in, and then you've got you dial it up and down with those. But there's so much you can set on this. So this is a little grounding strap, so if you were working on, you know, ESD sensitive devices on a circuit board, because this is not plugged into a wall outlet like a normal soldering station that, you know, the tip is grounded to earth ground, you could ground this if you wanted to, you know, for RC use when we're doing connectors and stuff. Not really a big deal. A nice little iron to hold. You know, compared to a soldering, a normal soldering iron, you know, it's certainly nice and light. Yeah. So let's solder up some wires. Here, I'm going to do an XT90 with 10 gauge. For most people, 10 gauge is probably going to be the biggest they're going to use. Maybe if it does 10, we'll try 8. But I think it's going to have a hard time with 10. Anyways, this is just a card showing you know, all the different tip types. So there are the bevels, there's the knives or the blade edge, and of course the chisel tip, which is what I recommend getting if you're doing for wiring stuff. If you're just doing electronic work, yeah, the little conical one's going to be fine. So we'll just put in our D24 tip. So let's see if we can get this thing to do 10 gauge. So let's first see if we can tin this. Oh, and it doesn't come with, you know, a a tip cleaner. So you'd probably want to pick that up if you don't already have one. And it doesn't come with any type of stand. You can buy little stands, but what I thought I'd do, I've got all these extra carbon fiber tail fins from helicopters. I thought I'd just make something, maybe with one of the horizontal tail fins. I could make a little cradle for it to rest in. If I get one made, I'll maybe show it later in the video. Let's plug this in and see if we can get this. So what we're going to do is we're going to dial it right up to 400, because we're going to need all that temp for this big wire. So I press that, So it's ramping up. Let's see how fast it's. You know, that's I would say that's within 11 seconds. Pretty amazing. So let's just ramp this right up to 400. Oops, going the wrong way. Okay, so it's ramped it up to 400. There you can see it's coming up. Says it's already there. So let's see if we can get this done. Geez, no problem at all. Not quite as quick as a big old Weller 140 watt, you know, soldering gun. But that is well saturated. You know, you could leave it on there and wick it all the way into the wire. Not a good idea, but this is incredible. Okay, let's just, yep, you kind of do need a stand for it, as you can see. Okay, I'm just going to plug this XT90 in here. Just put it in the vise. Fill the cradle up. Here, I'm just going to zoom in so you can see this part. Okay, fill the cradle about halfway or so. Jeez, it's, yeah, oh. Not a problem. Put a little bit more in. A little more on there. Get some solder between the wire and the tip for good heat conductivity. Hold it on. That is amazing. Just dial the temperature down now. We don't need it at 400 again. In fact, we could probably turn it off. So, yep. So you could get this and do big 10 gauge on XT90 connectors. You know what? Let's try an 8 gauge. Okay, before doing the big 8 gauge, I just thought we'd go over the programming. So instead of hitting the A button, when you turn it on, you press the B button, and then you can go through all the parameters you can set. So the first display that comes up here, it's showing the input voltage and the tip temperature. Factory reset, but we'll go this way. So this actually does have the option where you can flip this display around. So right hand, the display is that way. Oh, if you wait too long, it times out. So you hold the B button in, and it will flash. And you just hit the B button again to select. So there would be left-handed. So if you're holding it in your left hand, it would be upright. Come back to right. Hopefully that makes sense. And then after the selection, you just wait until it stops flashing, and then you can keep going on. So here's where you could go between Celsius and Fahrenheit. So we'll hold that in. Now we're in Fahrenheit. We'll go back to Celsius. Maybe. Oh, there we go. And then you just wait till it stops flashing, and you can go to your next field. This is the voltage off. Temperature steps, so it goes in 10-degree increments. As you saw when we were setting the temp, you could change that. Idle time 360 seconds. Sleep time 180. So sleep time is when you put it down first, it'll wait 160 until it ramps it down to its sleep temperature. Geez, here we go again. And idle time is 360 seconds, and that's the time from when it goes into sleep to the time it powers off. And then its standby temperature, sleep temp, is 200. You could dial that up or down. That's your work temperature. It automatically defaults to 300, which is a nice temp for most people, but you can dial that up and down, and then you can do a factory reset. Big old 8 gauge. Hopefully that's showing up. It is 8. Don't burn the finger there, buddy. Okay, here we go. Dumping just tons of heat into this big old wire. It's going, but it's not. Oh, there we go. It'll do it. It takes a little finesse though. But that's well saturated. Okay, this is actually a little bit too big for the connector. Let's fill that connector up again. Fill the cradle up, oh, halfway or so. Now, if it can melt this into that, I'll be amazed. Yeah, she's going. Solder on there. Wow, that is a hot tip. So yeah, I don't know if you'd need it to go to 400. That's plenty warm. I will just shut it off. But I took it. It's not the prettiest job. You know, I rushed, but it'll do. So it'll do 8 gauge. Unreal. Let's try something else. Try some tin maybe. We're back with a hunk of galvanized tin. You know, it's not super thick, but certainly this would suck more heat than the biggest ground plane or power bus that you would ever see in the world of electronics, most likely. So we're going to bump it back up to 400. And while that's heating up, let's just see if a gun can do it. So here's the old 8200. My normal go-to power, high temperature. Okay, so the gun, as you can see, really has no issue. This is at the second. That's at the second click, so 140 watts. So remember, this is 65 watts, 140. But again, direct drive tip technology. So, let's see if this can do it. Actually, we'll do it over here, so there's no warmth from the gun. Well, it's doing it. Not quite as quickly, but I just can't get over this. Tiny little iron like this. Well, I'm impressed. So, I guess now all we have to do is take it apart. Where's the tip cleaner there? I got that cleaned off. We'll dial her down. Actually, I think if you hold that, that's what turns it off. Not sure if it... Yeah, I think that's just what's... it's if you hold both down, it turns it off, or you can unplug it. Again, read the instructions. I should probably have done that before I started playing around. But again, it's super easy to use, pretty intuitive. Just in case anyone's curious, after doing that big wire and that tin, what does our battery voltage drop down to? Remember, at 24 volts and 65 watts, it's supposed to be pulling about 2.7 amps. So this was what was this, 23.18 roughly before. Is that in frame? So, you know, that was some pretty big soldering, and we haven't dropped much. So it's not using tons of power. So to finish off, let's open this little rascal up so you can see what's inside it. I should mention you can buy different cases for it, like just the empty cases if you wanted to change the color or if you cracked a case. These are just plastic. So to get these open, you just take out the bottom screw, which is on the back side of that one that you tighten for your tip. And then this case should pry apart. Should. There we go. So it just pries apart and then comes off at the back. And as you can see, it's the plastic is actually blue throughout, so if you were to scratch it, it's got a metallic finish on the outside, but you know, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't see black or a white or a different color if you were, when you scratch them. So here's our board. I'm going to look at the components under the microscope and maybe give you some part numbers for anyone who's interested in component type stuff. So to get the board out, you take these two little Phillips screws out at the contact points. By the way, just so you can see how the tip makes contact, there are these two copper contacts that you know, make solid contact with the ring, and they hold that tip in really secure. So that's why I say, you know, a lot of people don't even bother you know, tightening the little screw here to hold the tip in. That's totally up to the individual, of course. So anyways, to get the board out, we take these two little Phillips screws out on these contact. I'm just going to grab some tweezers here. So it's a little bit of a delicate operation. Oh, and then there's a screw on the back side. That's your grounding screw, or on the front side, I guess it would be. Got to take that one out. This grounding screw is actually a little bit longer than the screws on the tip end, so just keep an eye on that. The little bag of goodies that come with these, it comes with two extra screws. They're the short ones, if you ever lose that tip tightening screw. Now, hopefully this should just, oh yeah, there we go. Nothing to it. Oh, it's crammed in there pretty good. Lots of neat stuff. And we will, I'll go under the scope and just read off some of the component numbers. Looking at the little board under the microscope here, just a couple little component highlights. That's our input, the 5525 barrel input. Probably a voltage regulator. It's hidden from view under there. This little board on the top is what contains the processor or the microcontroller. It's an STM32F103T8U6 standard 32-bit ARM Cortex processor. But it's neat to see a 32-bit processor controlling a little soldering iron. This is a what is this? An RT7272B, which I believe is a step-down DC converter. So if that's the brains, this is probably the muscle. This is the triggering pad. Looks like it goes through. I can't see what that is. It's blocked out. And this little guy is probably the accelerometer up here. It's also blocked out, the part number. But that's what's on the back side, and on the front side there's of course the OLED display. There's the grounding post, a little brass threaded post for the ground screw, and then a couple of tactile switches for your up and down switch. The other thing that was neat to notice is on the case itself, it's actually got threaded brass inserts, molded into the plastic. So it's not just screws going into plastic, which would come loose or strip out over time. So just to finish up, just thought I'd show the little holder I made. Nothing special, just made it out of carbon fiber, like I said. You can sit in that way, sit in on the raised portion of the tip, or even on the body. There's, you can make various holders for them, or you can buy them cheap enough. So if if you're interested in one of these little TS100s, thinking of buying one or wanting to know more about it, hopefully this little video of mine helped show you a few of the neat features it has and how it works. And yeah, super powerful. 8-gauge wire. I'm still kind of speechless over that one. Cheers, folks. Have a good one.